Solid topic of the day, addressing the fraud in payments in real time. A very unique and a very critical subject matter in this overall context of this summit. And to present on this, I would like to call on two of our expert speakers and stalwarts on the subject. Please help me welcome them with the biggest round of applause. Mr. Raj Jain, Chairman and Managing Director, RS Software, and Mr. Sumit Misra, Senior Vice President, RS Software. Raj Jain and Sumit, welcome to the stage.
Come, Sumit.
Real-time payments are changing the world. The next decade is forecasted to shift 2.7 trillion transactions and $48 trillion from cash to digital channels. Real-time payments, request for pay, and modern API-first technology are the foundation for the next generation payments, servicing demands like straight-through processing, programmable money, and the metaverse ecosystem. RS Software's 30 years of retail payment expertise has helped build the largest card rail in the world and exclusively built the largest real-time account-based payment rail. India's success story with digital payments is unfolding every minute, achieving the next level of success. RS Software exclusively delivered the world's first third-generation real-time payment infrastructure with a four-party payment model to create India's open payment ecosystem, which includes real-time payment rail, bill presentment and payment network, and multi-rail fraud and risk management. The company serves central infrastructures, financial institutions, banks, businesses, and acquiring and acceptance service providers. RS Software product suite offers ISO 20022 ready open payment architecture using a cloud-based microservices framework, optimizing costs, seamless integrations with commoditized products, and accelerates the pace of adoption. RS Software personifies trust, stability, and predictability. With presence in 4 continents and working with global brands, our vision is to deliver mission-critical payment solutions that combine with innovation and entrepreneurship to create the new gold standard for digital payments.
Morning, everybody. Can you all hear me? Wonderful. Thank you very much for being here. And we are delighted to bring to you thought leadership on the subject. My colleague Sumit will be presenting in just a couple of minutes. So I have a question for all of you in the audience. How many of you believe not too much in life should be kept just for yourself? By show of hand, please tell me how many of you believe not too much in life should be kept just for yourself. Well, I guess we are not learning the Indian belief and mythology. But nevertheless, let me tell you that this is the mantra that all the fraudsters across the globe believe in. Don't keep it for yourself, give it to me. Right? And we are out here to tell them, yes, take what you're entitled for, and what you're not entitled for, that doesn't belong to you. That's what the technology is all about. I have one more question. How many of you in this room use UPI? Wow. Wow. Every time I go across the globe and I hear about UPI, and that's been built exclusively by RS Software. In the last 100 years, practically, to be precise, more like about last 65 years, ever since the cards, debit cards, credit cards first came out, there has not been a single precedence of digital payments catching fire on the growth like UPI has done. Of course, we are helped with that 20% of world's population is in India. So we have lots and lots of people, and therefore lots and lots of brains. But what that leads towards is that you and I today live more online than we live offline. Our survival is dependent upon being online. Is that correct? Do we agree? And therefore, real-time payments and real-time fraud are going hand in hand together. And that's where we're going to share some of our thoughts with you this morning. And I really hope that you guys have questions to make sure what we are telling you is clear to you. In a very recent survey by Deloitte, 78% of the respondents have said, sorry, Bank of Baroda, is going to happen, and that is online fraud is going to continue to be on the increase. So does it mean that we don't do anything about it? Just take it as a matter of fact? Obviously not. When you see RBI's latest report, it says that on an average over the last 7 years, the banks in India have been losing close to ₹1 billion a year to fraud. So there is lots to be done. Let's hear our thought leader, Sumit, who will take you through this, and we are here to answer any questions. And do visit our booth right outside, but you walk outside, it's on your left. Thank you very much. Sumit?
Thank you, Raj. Good morning, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to have the opportunity to speak to this eminent audience. Fraud in payments is becoming the largest contributor to risk in our daily lives, going up by the second. The best of the intellects are being called upon by the regulators globally, and multi-million dollars are being allocated to research and innovate novel solutions to beat the creative fraudsters who are busy discovering newer ways to inflict damage that translate instantly to wealth for them. As they say, many blessings are followed by a curse. During the recent pandemic, survival of humanity was dependent on the digital reach of payments. Thanks to the untiring effort of the regulators, real-time payments have been activated in many parts of the world, including India. While this came as a real blessing, it resulted in digital payments surging to a level that otherwise would have taken 10 years or more. The fraudster for sure saw this as a lifetime opportunity, and they rushed in with all their creativity, making hay where the sun shines. This has given rise to emergence of innovative fraud patterns that were hitherto unthinkable. At the same time, the growth in real-time payments demanded the best of the engineering feat to make the novel fraud management solution work at speed levels to match the processing speed of the real-time payments. Marvels of technology, of course, just do not stop at that. The deployment of artificial intelligence, deep learning, is complementing the traditional rule engines to manage the frauds. All of this has raised the bar significantly in the last 24 to 36 months for fraud management solutions, separating the men from the boys, and essentially it is now the survival of the fittest. Now let us look at how fraudsters get creative during the cycle of money movement. As we would well expect, there has been unprecedented rise of P2P transaction globally, especially after the widespread adoption of real-time payments. In India, P2P payments until recently were dominant, as we saw the unheard of rise in the UPI transaction in the country. While the dominance has given way to a P2M transaction, even today, almost 4 billion P2P transactions happen in a month on UPI. Many a times, a P2P solution transaction may look very innocuous. However, behind the scenes, P2P transaction can be used to move money across mule accounts and eventually cash out for money laundering. Unless we analyze the fund flow in details between the accounts, we will not be able to identify this structure. While AML specialists can highlight some of the accounts as probable mule accounts, banks need tools to delve deep into how real-time payments is moving the money, touching the mule accounts. The next big challenge is the ability to digitally reach to bring about personalization. Impersonations through stolen identities result in fraud, and data breaches are accelerated beyond imagination. Citizens who were not tech savvy, especially during the pandemic, took help from strangers. Aged citizens trusted their unsuspecting helps with PIN, debit cards, phones for their payment of their groceries, which later were used to flush out funds. Fake QR codes and VPA were used to transfer money to non-merchants, and the delivery against the order never reached the consumer. Unless the fraud solution can digitally look into the behavior of the payer holistically across the payment channels and identify anomalies, fraud detection becomes a very tough problem. This personalized perspective is needed to protect without adding friction and to keep the false positive low. This requires huge data churning to build fine-grained profiles and provide instantaneous access to transactions from the recent past across all the payment channels. Now, updating the profiles in near real time in an environment with a very high level of processing, considering the volume of transactions, needs best of the intellectual creativity. Referring to recent past data necessitates maintaining the transactions in memory. This requires huge focus on the storage and access control. To top it all this processing has to be done within a few hundred milliseconds. Else, the experience of the instantaneousness factor of the real-time payment will degrade, nullifying the effect of the fraud solution. As systems across the globe starts plugging into all of these security holes, fraudster finds different ways and different fraud patterns emerge. To tackle this evolving nature of fraud, one needs to deploy AI/ML at scale, about which I spoke a little earlier. Essentially, AI/ML depends on the label data from the banks. Today, as the end consumer is seldom involved, the onus lies on the educated guess of the alert and the risk analysts, who has to deal with so many of the alerts every day. This impacts the quality of the machine learning models. We need to improve significantly upon this. As we hear while speaking to our prospective customers, the banks are open to route the alerts of the transaction to their customers and have a way to get their direct feedback on whether he or she has made such a transaction or not. This response can be passed back to the system, thus providing a high quality label data. Rules are used to address the known fraud patterns and predictable fraud patterns. On one hand, by studying the fraud profiles over time, one can develop rules that represent a high-risk transaction. On the other hand, a new payment use case like mandates using real-time payments and etc. intuitively will need rules to arrest expected fraud patterns just after the launch of that new product. Rules can address both of these. However, rules in a bank may need differing flavors for central and for the branches. A volume rule parameter threshold for a retailer in a metro city will be very different from the threshold for a retailer in the rural area. It will be ideal to maintain these rules as one group with differing thresholds. With time, some rules will reduce in efficiency and they need to be sunset. And the new rules will come in. And there should be no constraint on the bank on the number of the rules. So in summary, we find that the challenge of fraud in digital payments include using real-time payments channel for committing real-time fast frauds, using digital impersonations through stolen identities, using apparently safe transactions to move money for laundering the ill-gotten wealth. Fast evolving of the patterns are also a problem, and much more. To address this and all of this above, we need a multi-channel fraud and risk management solution. Which can process in real time and at a very high speed and deploy the power of AI/ML to discover unique patterns quickly. Our product RS IntelliEdge addresses these challenges decisively. So before sending the transaction to the central rails, the bank sends the transaction across any of these channels to our risk and fraud engine, which is RS IntelliEdge.
Excuse me, can we remove those chairs or the alignment needs to be, but can't see anything at the bottom?
Cheers.
Can't see
Oh.
anything at the bottom.
Oh, the chairs? Okay.
Yeah, we are asking them.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. So our product gets those transactions in real time. It uses both the rules and the AI/ML solutions in parallel to do the scoring. It uses the profiles of the customer, the accounts and the devices, and it takes all the recent transactions pertaining to those personas, and they run the rules across them to classify them as normal transactions or very risky transaction or just an alert. And these information, the declines and the alerts, are passed on to either communication, which means it is sent to the customer at the end user for them to say whether they have made the transaction or not, and it also passes to the case management system, which the bank and the branch can qualify and look at it and say that whether they are really the wrong transaction or fraudulent transaction. And all of these information are fed back into the AI/ML, and it gradually updates and becomes stronger every time. So we have the reports and the dashboards which tells us how the system is performing and if any action has to be taken. And the AML assist helps us for the bank personnel to delve into a transaction and see whether the transaction is touching any mule account or not. So RS IntelliEdge has been designed grounds up to deliver speed without compromising on the accuracy. It has captured the knowledge and intuition of the fraud analysts who have learned for ages and built the fraud filters through rules, because that is very much needed. As well as it can leverage the power of data science and use AI/ML to address unknown patterns which are coming up. It removes the silos of the channels and creates a cross-channel perspective for holistic decisioning. Finally, it can track the flow of funds to detect money laundering. So RS IntelliEdge will protect all the digital payment transaction of your bank and will be able to scale up to serve your needs. Thank you, and do visit us in the booth number 4 for details.
Good work, Sumit.
Thank you.
Just that you all know that our journey in fraud management began in 2001 when we designed and built the first ever major fraud management system for the largest payment network, Visa, And 22 years later, this is 2023 now, the world is very different. And we are at it with the best of research at our Payments Innovation Lab in the areas of artificial intelligence, autonomous analytics, deep machine learning, because that is really where the world needs to get to, capturing fraud, Vishwajit, on a dynamic basis. And that is where we believe that our strength lies, working with payments for the last 30 years. And we are privileged to operate the fraud and risk management platform for India today for NPCI. The questions at this stage?
Yeah, so thank you so much. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the questions, a big round of applause to Mr. Raj Jain and Mr. Sumit Misra for that wonderful presentation jointly on RS software and how addressing the frauds in payments in real time is their forte. Now, given the interest of the time, we'll take two quick questions, and as Mr. Jain already said, please do visit the RS software booth and they will be more than happy to let you know about their unique products and offerings. So two quick questions from the audience. Please raise your hand. Please make it a brief question. We have a question in the front. So please do introduce yourself and the question to which of the honorable speaker it is.
Hello, I am Shubhashish Roy from IDBI Bank. I just want to know one question regarding this deep learning, as you told. It is not yet used properly in the banking for fraud detection. So what are the challenges and how to overcome it for using the deep learning? Thank you.
So, number one challenge is to identify which model will help. Whether it should be a CNN model, RNN model, or a decision tree model. So that is one challenge. And the second is to run a convoluted CNN or RNN type of things, you require a lot of data processing. Space will be required for doing that. Sometimes we have faced the challenge that the space requirement is so much that it cannot train the data so much. However, I think there are ways to overcome that with the newer technologies that are coming up, and I'm sure that with time, all of us together can evolve into a better.
That's the evolution that's happening every day.
Thank you so much. Can we have the next question?
I am Vishwajit Dhar, CGM of IDBI Bank. Today we are using NPCI driven solution, and that to free of cost. When bank is getting the solution as a free of cost, why we should or one should basically require these additionally, this UPI solution of RS Intelligence?
Thank you, Vishwajit. Sumit?
Yeah, so there are two things. When we are looking at a central level, we get the profiles and information from a payment source perspective, because I do not have the details of the consumer or the customer or the account holder. I get it from that card number or account number or UPI DPA. So even I as a person transacting in 3 different channels will have siloed profiles. Those profiles cannot be integrated together. That's one challenge which banks can overcome because they are creating a unified view of the customer. That is one. And the second is all the rules, all the things that we are creating at the central level, they are more for a generic country level operation, not specific to the type of customers and type of businesses that a bank runs. So NBFC could have a different set of rules with thresholds and even parameters than IDBI or any other big banks who want to operate. Especially there will be differences in the rural segment as well as in the central or the metro segment. All this, if you want to have all these differences, it is best to have in the bank, not to have in the central only.
To get even more, you need to spend some more money.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And now I would request Mr. Manish Agrawal, EVP and Head for Credit Intelligence and Control from HDFC Bank, to kindly do the honors of felicitating our honorable speakers here. Thank you so much, Manish ji, for doing the honors.
Good to see you. Very good to see you. Thank you so much.
Ladies and
Really
gentlemen, that
appreciate
was Mr. Raj Jain, CMD, RS Software. Thank you, Raji, for that wonderful session.
it. Thank you.
Very nice.
A big round of applause for Mr. Sumit Misra, Senior Vice President, RS Software, and a wonderful presentation from Sumit as well.
We'll be in touch.